Hello, and welcome to this edition of Cracking the Rich Code, the podcast. I'm John Verico, and I'm delighted to be your host. And I've got a special guest today, and I know I call them all special, but this one, yeah, I know I say this all the time, but she is very special. You're going to love Melissa Borowicz. She's an executive coach who focuses on organizational development and cultural transformation. And she went through her own transformation recently, and she shares that story in Cracking the Rich Code, Volume 19. Let me bring her in and wait till you meet Melissa Borowicz. Melissa, let's see. There you go. Hi there.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Hi. I can hear you, John. Thank you.
Sounds great. Well, great to see you. Thank you for
as
joining
well.
us.
Yeah.
And
Thank you for
thank you
having me.
oh yes, of course. And thank you for the chapter you wrote in Cracking the Rich Code, volume 19. You know, when we are asked to do these to become part of Cracking the Rich Code, is kind of a surprise sometimes. Sometimes it's an honor, well, always an honor. But when we're invited in, we have all kinds of reactions. I'm going to ask this: what was your reaction when you were first invited into Cracking the Rich Code?
Oh, gosh. I think first I was intrigued, like just curious, and like, what is this? Um, and then when I talked to Jim Britt, um, he's a really special guy. Like he just we had a great conversation. He talked about the purpose behind cracking the rich code, and that's about enriching, all areas of life. And I was like, well, what about the other co-authors? And like, can I have, I'm going to read a sample and just do some investigation. He's like, I'm going to share with you a sample of a book. And then from there we talked again, and it was a great opportunity to be involved in this community of other co-authors who all have been very fantastic.
It is truly an amazing group of people, and we all do some really unique things, unique to ourselves. We bring something special to whoever it is that we work with. Now, you are an executive coach, and you work with CEOs and business owners and things like that. What do you help? What is kind of the key thing that you focus on when you're working with them?
Yeah. Overall, when I think about the businesses that we work with, the resounding theme is that we help businesses navigate transition, growth, and change. And with that, there's always a level of uncertainty as you're figuring out what are the next steps. Our approach is to understand the people and the dynamics within an organization, and to help put the pieces in place for an organization to thrive, and have a solid plan for how to navigate any of those changes.
So, what kind of companies do you normally work with?
Yeah, the companies we work with are typically middle market, so medium-sized businesses. Um, and we work with all organizations. I say that we're industry agnostic. So we work with manufacturing, property management. I've worked with government and higher education, nonprofit. Um, there's not many industries that we haven't worked with, but the common denominator is people, and who are going through change and just need, a guide to help them on that path.
It when you look at it, and people like to sector things out. This is this kind of a business, this is that kind of a business, this is the nonprofit sector, this is government, military, education, and they're not the same. But you made an excellent point. They are all made up of people, and
Yeah.
they do all deal with change and transition at different times. And so that way of navigating that is kind of a common factor.
It absolutely is. And um I mean, and I'm in a peer group as well, and the number one thing that gets brought up every month when we meet is people issues and navigating relationships, and because relationships can be messy and and challenging, and it's just something that foundationally all of us are working to improve. And how can we have healthier relationships in our personal life, at work, with our team members and colleagues, and then for business owners, it's also how are they setting and reinforcing a culture, and that's driving their business to be successful.
And that culture is really important. Obviously, we want people who are happy to be there and who
Yeah.
want to do well and feel like they're making a difference.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we all in life. I think really what it comes down to, no matter what it is that we get involved with, we always want to feel like we matter and that we make a difference. And if the culture of an organization doesn't allow for that, it's hard to stick around. You
Yeah.
know, they say
Yeah.
people leave managers before they leave companies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been fortunate to have been able to work with some really extraordinary leaders in my career. So I feel blessed.
So now this is your business, right? You're an
It is.
entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And what did you do before, just out of curiosity, what did you do before you became an entrepreneur, and what was that shift like for you?
Yeah, well, we're actually a second generation family business. So my
Oh, okay.
parents had founded the business, um, and I this was not it wasn't on my radar initially. My initial plan, I went to school to be a marriage and family therapist, so that I was in the field doing that, and about 22 years ago, I was looking to make a change. And one of my dad's employees reached out to me unbeknownst to him and said, hey, like, I think you should join the business. And I was like, I think you're crazy. And he's like, no, he's like, you're going to be great. You get people, you get relationships. And I made the decision primarily, John, because I knew I had more I there was more that I wanted to do, and I wanted to be challenged, and I wanted to have an impact. And I grew up hearing stories, from my dad and my mom both, of ways that they were impacting change in organizations and in people's lives. And so I made that choice, and
It's really
then
rewarding,
I
isn't it?
oh, it's so rewarding. And to be able to work with an organization, and help a broader group of people, or impact culture change that is positive, and just the impact that that has on people's lives and our economy locally, and it's pretty phenomenal. So, and I am fortunate that I've been given a lot of freedom and autonomy, from my parents to lead. One other thing too, just as we're working with other privately held and family businesses, is I hear business owners tell me all the time, Melissa, you've gone through it. You've gone through a transition in your business. You understand not just the X's and O's that need to happen, but also the emotion that you go through in transition of, needing to have a purpose. And, as you're going through change and your role shifts, like, some of those pieces are really hard for a business owner to navigate. So it's been fun, and I can relate because I've lived it, and I've seen my parents go through it. So it's just very fulfilling to have the experience, but also have the tools and resources to help others.
And like we both said, it is so rewarding to do that, to actually watch that transformation happen, or just to see that little glint in the eye that says, oh my God, you made that's a great idea. I can do that.
Yeah.
It is so incredibly rewarding to do this kind of industry that we're in as coaches, and trainers and stuff. It's just probably the best place to be, just because we can make an impact
Yeah.
on other people. And I know that you've been focused. I know your chapter focuses on uncertain times. And I think your
Mhm.
chapter is called Mastering Uncertainty, Finding Strength in Uncertain Times. So let's talk a little bit about the chapter. Why did you decide to choose this particular topic? Obviously, we all know that we all do face uncertain times, and things do happen that are unexpected.
Yeah.
So, kind of tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to this.
Yeah. Almost 3 years ago, um, I I got I got sick. I had COVID, and it really knocked me down, and then I continued to have symptoms, and so I followed a path and ended up getting diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which is
Wow.
a autoimmune condition where your body attacks the myelin sheath, which is the protective covering on our nerve cells, and that, if it progresses, can impact your brain and spinal cord's ability and optic nerves ability to communicate with the rest of your body. Um, so when got diagnosed, I had an inkling. I'm like, this might be where this is going. But then when you hear the words, I'm like, well, that sucks more than what I thought it was going to. Um, and and so gosh, it was really tough. At that point, I had been leading our business for 5 years as CEO. I had taken over as owner for just 3 years, or bought the ownership from my father. And there was just this fear of the unknown that I went through, of not knowing what the future was going to hold for me. And the fear of potential disability, if my health deteriorated, and how that would impact me and my family and my team at work. And we're, really have a fantastic team that surrounds me. And so I was thinking about them, and all of that. And so I just started on a path, and thankfully, in some ways, in the work that I do, I felt fortunate that I had tools that I just leaned on without really thinking like, oh, I have tools that I'm going to pull in. It was just such a part of my wiring and how I think about things and approach things that I applied them, and I wanted to be able to share my story to help people, especially with if you feel paralyzed or stuck when you're faced with something that you're like, this was not part of the plan. Just that when things happen to us and it wasn't something that we wanted, like how do you kind of work through the grief and anger and all of the feelings that come up with that to chart a new path forward, not maybe the path that you planned, but a path that can still be something that is different, and maybe like in some ways there's some really good things that have come out of my diagnosis. If someone would have told me that 3 years ago, Jen, though, I would have, I pr I would not have been able to hear
You don't
that.
see it at that point, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It's only as you work through it that you start to see, okay, um, this is building a different kind of strength in me. So,
So share some of those. What are some of those good things that came out of this for you?
yeah, primary one of the big things. So, I have being somebody um, that has been focused on helping others for through my career and really my life. I've often put others' needs ahead of my own. And MS, there's some things that have like stress can be a trigger. Um, I couldn't work at the same pace maybe that I did because there's consequences if I took on too much, and my tendency was to take on a lot and work hard and get a lot done. And this really forced me to take a step back and look at how to also take care of myself and be aware of boundaries that I needed to set so that I didn't expend all my energy giving to others and then had nothing left for myself and for my family. So that was really beneficial. The other piece that
So,
I
so,
think.
so wait,
Oh, go
you
ahead.
learned how to say no here? Is that what happened?
Yes, and we we with both of us being people that raise our hands to say yes,
So
that
true.
oh my
Healing Farm.
gosh. Oh, and I'm an optimist, and I love, like, I see opportunities, and it's hard to say no when you see something good. I am not perfect at that. Like, I still have to be very aware of what am I saying yes to, and then what are the consequences if I say yes to too many things. And thankfully, my team reminds me. They're like, "Is that a good idea? Should," and my husband too, he'll be like, should you be doing that?" Um, but I joke. I have like my body gives me signals. It's like I say it's my check engine light. So if I've overcommitted, I have this check feedback like with how I feel. That I'm like, oh, that's too much. I got to pull back. So
My check engine light is the look on my wife's face when I tell her I've signed up for something else.
oh
She gets that look or just gives me that nod that mhm.
yeah. Hmm. Yep. Yep. I get
Oh,
that from multiple people in my life, which is good.
it's a good check.
Really
It
good
really
feedback.
is. We need those
Yeah.
checks and balances. We absolutely do.
Yes, for sure.
For
And
people who are just tuning in, I wanna remind you to go back and listen to this thing from the beginning and get to hear all of Melissa's story. We're speaking with Melissa Borowicz, who is an executive coach, who helps people with or helps businesses and people with transitions, and when things go a little bit differently than they originally planned, or when they're just dealing with any sort of change. She's got a great story that she's sharing. She shared a little bit in the Cracking the Rich Code Volume 19, and we're chatting about it here. So check this out from the beginning, and you definitely want to learn more about Melissa. Go and visit her website, which is utechod.com, and also connect with her on LinkedIn. Just look up her name, Melissa Borowicz. And for those of you who are not looking at this and are just listening to it in the car, it's Melissa Borowicz. Just look her up on LinkedIn. And of course, you want to pick up volume 19 of Cracking the Rich Code. So, all of that said, let's get back to Melissa and learn more. Melissa, you said that there were a couple of things that came out of your having to your diagnosis and having to deal with multiple sclerosis, and one of them was you started to learn how to put limits on
Mhm.
what you can do, and really starting to recognize where those boundaries were, and setting up new boundaries for yourself. And that was probably a remarkable thing in and of itself. But you said there were a couple of other things that you learned from it.
Yeah. I think maybe one of the more important things early on, and I found this for myself, but I see this with others who have a diagnosis or have gone through loss or are going through a significant change, is it's easy, I think, in the beginning to have fear. And with uncertainty, there can be fear because you don't know what the future holds. And I'm a planner, so I have things in place of here's where I'm headed. I'm goal oriented, and um And when I got my diagnosis, it disrupted the vision that I had for my life, really. I got faced with a couple of pictures. Like one picture was like from my initial doctor that I saw that, you know, going on websites and support groups where there were, there was just fear and seeing pictures of disability and almost like, hey, this is the path. And I had always in my head thought I'm gonna live to be a old lady, and I'm active, and my husband and I love to hike and be outdoors, um, and I was like that picture does not fit with the vision that I have for myself. Um, so initially I rejected that, and started looking at what are alternatives and did my own research, advocated for myself to find a different path. And I think that, when you're facing fear, realizing that you still have choice. So even though you didn't choose what's happening, you can choose how you respond. And you're still in the driver's seat. It's your life. So so I dove in and found a new doctor and took charge, and he's been a great partner and understands that I'm wired in a way where I'm very disciplined and focused. And so anytime when he's like, you don't have to, he's like, I know you, and like you're gonna want to figure out how to do the things you can do to be healthy. Um the so I think all of those things were helpful, just of reshaping. Yes, the vision is for my life maybe is a little bit different, but there's so much that you can do to make changes. There's so much out there on health and wellness that you can take action on to still have the life that you want. It's just altered a little bit, um, but that I think was really helpful for me. And I tell people just in general, like the when we're facing something that's scary, um, to get paralyzed and inaction is like just just do something. Like start someplace, take action, do something, because that paralysis is just where we get stuck, and then nothing changes.
Oh, that is a brilliant perspective right there. And it's so obvious when we look at it from that perspective, how that applies to not just personal life, but how that applies in business as well. And that's where you come in and how you work with businesses and your various clients. And I say we've been saying businesses, but I know you also work with the nonprofit sector. You've worked with government. You work with all kinds of organizations. Would you say you were organizationally agnostic?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Well,
Yep.
industry agnostic was it?
Industry agnostic. Yep. 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 Yes. And I, as we work with organizations, our my role and my team's role isn't to be experts in their industry. It's to be experts in people and relationships, um and navigating transition. So most of the clients that we work with are or organizations we're working with are growing. And there's challenges that come with growth because what got you here isn't probably what's going to get you to the next level. And that requires change and evolution. And then we work with a lot of businesses who are going through transition. So, retirements, owners who are looking to transition to the next generation, and how you help them in their transition of finding a new sense of purpose, as their role evolves, and how you help equip. We work with that next generation of leaders coming in, to prepare them for uh, whether it's ownership or taking on a larger leadership capacity in the organization. And it's all changed. It's all
It's all
changed. So,
changed. It is
mhm,
all changed, which is the most fearful thing
yeah.
next to public speaking, of course.
Yeah.
Public speaking still is the number one fear, and but change is right up there. And I think and we're kind of hardwired to fear change, and that goes back to all of our the roots in our amygdala in the brain, right? You go back
Mhm.
to kind of that reptilian part of us that when you look at reptiles when they go through change, right? When they're molting, it's a growth process for them. But during that molting period, when their skin peels off and stuff, the first thing that happens is they get a film that forms over their eyes, and during that period of change, they're actually blind. They don't know what's coming, and that uncertainty is what causes the fear
Yeah. Yeah.
because we feel vulnerable. We don't know what's next, and so when whether you're facing a health diagnosis or you're facing a corporate buyout or you're facing any other kind of change, um, there is a path to be calm and to make the choices. And I think that you are providing an amazing service, helping people realize that they do have choices and they can get through. And it's really all founded in um, keeping relationships going and how we treat
Yeah.
each other throughout this whole
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. So
This
true.
has been great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I I think what you said with we all fear change and it's in our wiring is we're creatures of habit and we get comfortable doing what we do even if the things that we're doing aren't maybe helping us,
Yeah.
get where we want to
Yes.
go.
It's why people stay in bad jobs or in a bad relationship, right? They're more fearful of changing, of the unknown, than they are of the miserable condition they're in at the moment.
Yeah.
And but yet, and we all know this. There's no growth without change.
Yeah.
Change happens. Everything changes, and it's funny. I know when I am doing a change program, people I'll ask, is any do you want your life to be exactly as it is right now in this very moment, or do you want something to change? That
Yeah.
something could be, I don't know, you want to move, you want to have a more money, whatever, and there's always something that we desire or that needs to change in our life, but yet we fear taking that step to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think with all change, and you said this even with the reptile example, is there's anytime we go through change, there's a period of confusion because if you're really changing, you're doing things differently. It's not the way you've approached things in the past. And I know I've gone through that personally with my diagnosis and any other change that I've gone through in my career. And I see, business owners and leaders go through that too. And one thing, and hopefully this is helpful for others too, is I had such a strong vision for myself and for the life that I wanted that even when things get hard, like I've made pretty significant changes to my diet and how I exercise and boundaries and like there's a lot that I have put in place, not all at the same time, but I've made changes bit by bit, but it's all connected to I know where what I want. And there isn't a guarantee that that's going to happen. Like you know there's no guaranteed certainty that I'm gonna have all of those things, and this MS disease could like take over at some point, um but I'm doing all the things in my power that I can impact and influence to have that vision that I want. And it's a daily motivator. And it's a motivator for, my family and my team too, of like seeing like, hey, when you get knocked down, like feel what you need to feel, grieve it, be angry about it, and then and then
And
pick
get
yourself up
up.
and figure out what to do.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Oh, so inspirational. I love it. Melissa, thank you so much for sharing your story in Cracking the Rich Code Volume 19, by the way, but also here in our discussion. Uh, thank you for taking the time to be here and for everything that you're out there doing. It's been a wonderful conversation. Is there anything that you want to remind people to do, think, or feel as they wrap up this show? And I do want to remind people to visit your website at utechod.com.
Um, Great question. I think just one reminder is, again, when something happens to you that you weren't expecting and it wasn't part of the plan, um, to realize that if you stay stuck in things happening, because things happen to all of us, but figure out what are the ways that you can take charge to still advocate for yourself, to create a vision for what you want. And then to look at just, I think, small changes, because sometimes initially when you're going through something hard, it can be daunting. And so break things down into what are small chunks that you can start just building new habits to be able to move towards what you want for your business, what you need to do or want to do for your own health and wellness. And remember, you don't have to do it alone. And I think
That's the key right
being
there.
being someone who's focused on helping others, allowing others to help me on my journey has been interesting. It's been really good, but initially like, oh wow, like I'm letting people really love me. And that's changed me as well for the better.
I think if there are two takeaways that people can get from this whole conversation is that remember that you have choices and remember that you're not alone. I love it. Melissa, thank you so much for taking the time and for sharing your heart and your wisdom and your story. And thank you for joining us on Cracking the Rich Code.
Thank you,
So
John.
folks, definitely check out this episode. Go and pick up volume 19 and read her chapter. Visit her website at there it goes. utechod.com and connect with her on LinkedIn and Melissa Borowicz. Thank you again. Have a wonderful afternoon. Greatly appreciate it. And stay warm out there in Wisconsin.
Thank you. Will do.
All right.